Hey everybody, glory to Jesus Christ. My name is Father Bartimaeus, and coming back at you today with another video because this is more of a response, or rather answering to a question video than anything else. So I was asked, how do I get started in Orthodoxy? Where should I begin in my journey into Orthodoxy, and what should that look like, right? So first off, I want to say that in Orthodoxy, it Orthodoxy is a beautiful. Um, we have a beautiful church. We have a beautiful faith, right? What most people see as Orthodoxy is, what they've seen from the Greeks or the Russians, and so that's awesome. That's 100% awesome. That's 100% definitely Orthodoxy. Definitely not saying it's not Orthodoxy. But I think it's also important that we understand that Orthodoxy is not limited to a specific rite, right? Orthodoxy is limited to a faith, right? Orthodoxy is the faith that we live, the faith that we continue in, and the rite is definitely attached to that faith, but it's not everything, right? The Divine Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom, beautiful liturgy. I was ordained in the Divine Liturgy of St. John Chrysostom. An absolutely beautiful, beautiful liturgy. But it's changed. I mean, it's changed. It's adapted. There's been additions to it throughout time. It's not the exact same thing as it was in the time of St. John Chrysostom. And so I think any good liturgist will be honest with you about that. So the liturgy, while definitely very, very important, and while we do believe in that old Latin phrase, lex orandi, lex credendi, right? What you pray, you believe, right? Which is the reason why our rite, the rite of Saint Tikhon of Moscow, had to be adapted. Right, it was an Episcopalian and Anglican rite, and then it went to the Holy Synod of Russia, and it was it was not changed, but there were certain things that were changed in it to be in conformance with the Orthodox faith, right? And so we have these things that are prevalent, right? We have to ensure that whatever we're praying is the belief of the Orthodox faith, right? And so a lot of people will say, "Oh, okay, well, I really don't like the Eastern Rite. I've heard this, and I completely, I can't fault them. I really love the Orthodox faith, but I'm not a fan of the liturgy of your worship service, right? They're looking for more of a Western variant, the more Western variation, and that's I'm actually a bi-ritual priest. I know I can do both the Eastern or the Western rites. It does not matter, but that's kind of where the Western rites came from, right? And so we especially here in the deanery have a set of have books that we suggest, especially for those who are inquiring into the faith, who want to enter into the faith, who want to take that plunge, that next step into Orthodoxy, right, and really coming to an understanding, preparation before baptism, right? So typically I'll do the catechumenal prayers over them, and then after the catechumenal prayers, they'll begin this period of formation, and then at the end of that formation, then they'll be received fully into the church, right? And so where do they kind of get started? Well, the first place that we point them to is right here. That's right, the Orthodox Study Bible. The Orthodox Study Bible is a beautiful Bible. I keep this thing with me wherever I go. It's a great book. I've put tabs in here for prayers and the lectionary, the index to the articles. It's got beautiful icons inside of it that you can start learning to read the icons, because icons are meant to be read. They're not images. They're really books in of themselves. So we have the icons in here, and then also in the bottom text here we have the Orthodox faith down at the bottom in the footnotes. Okay, so you can't get any better than that, because you can literally learn the faith just by reading through your scripture verses, doing Lectio Divina. I thoroughly suggest people do that daily. I try to do that daily with the readings for the day. But also in here is some really great information. Let me see if I can find one. They're not always easy to find. I think I might have it better. Here, let me go to the index of. So yeah, let's look at. Let's talk about deification on 1692, right? So we're going to go to page 1692 in here. 1692. And here we see this little statement, this little teaching on deification, right? Now this is not exhaustive, but it's something that we can kind of go to and we can look at it and we can kind of read and understand what the Orthodox faith teaches us about deification. Okay, inside of that deification actually comes from the Latin. In the Greek, it would actually be theosis, right? Or it means to become like God, which is a primary tenet in Orthodoxy. And so this here, you can read through this, you can seek to understand it. If you have questions, you can ask your priest, right? Ask your priest, what does this mean? How do I understand this better, right? And he may have some books, like myself, that you can, he may suggest for you to learn more about that, right? Hopefully your spiritual father is developing a prayer rule for you. I'll get on that here in a second. The second thing that here in the deanery that we do is we tell all of anyone who's interested in Orthodoxy that you need to get one of these, right? So this is what's called the Longer Catechism of the Eastern Orthodox Church, okay? While we are Western Orthodox, we still follow the Catechism, okay? It's Catechism, the faith of the Orthodox faith is the Orthodox faith. It doesn't matter if it says Eastern Orthodox or Western Orthodox on the cover. It's all the same faith. We all believe the same thing as Orthodox Christians. So this is a beautiful, and this one is by Saint Philaret of Moscow. An amazing little book here. You can actually get this off of Amazon. You can get both off Amazon, actually. This here has a shorter catechism in the front, and then it has a longer catechism in the back. I always, so very simple, what learning is most needful for all men? Christian learning, right? Who draws near to God by deed? He who walks after God's will and law, right? So these are some little things, whence may we learn how to pray? The Lord's Prayer. Whence how to walk after God's will and law? From the Ten Commandments, right? And so it's very simple, very short. Even whenever you get into the longer portions, into the longer catechism, it goes into some teaching here that's a little bit longer, but it's nothing that's too hard to digest, right? And if you have questions, you can always ask your sponsor or ask your priest, your parish priest. So those are the two books that we initially tell our inquirers to look into. Once you've made that step and you've moved a little bit further into Orthodoxy and living the faith, maybe after a number of years, the one that we use for our seminarians and for seminarians, right? Those are in discernment to become priests and deacons in the deanery, is the Catechism of Saint Peter Mogila. This is a beautiful catechism. I don't have it on me right now, actually. I don't have it on me right now. I might be on my desk. But it's a beautiful catechism. It's much longer, and it has a lot more teaching in it. It's also been a catechism that has been approved by pretty much every Orthodox patriarch in the time of that it was written, right? So it really has a stamp of authenticity for the Orthodox faith that we ourselves hold fast to, because it has that stamp of authenticity from several patriarchs in the Orthodox Church, right? Now, I know some people would say, well, this saint says this, and this saint says that, and this saint says that's all fine and dandy, and we're not going to argue with people. But just because they have saint at the beginning of their name doesn't mean that they're always right in every circumstance, right? So instead, what we tend to do is we focus on the faith, right, and what has we have clear definitions from and clear teachings from, and then our Holy Synod will determine everything else for us. If there is something that needs to be determined, but for the most part, what we suggest and what I suggest, really I suggest here in the deanery is, and for anybody who's looking at entering into this Orthodox faith, you really need to have these two books, right? The Bible, the Orthodox Study Bible, the longer Catechism of the Eastern Orthodox Church by St. Philaret of Moscow. These two are going to really provide you what you're looking for, right? In trying to understand and live out this Orthodox faith. But again, Orthodoxy is not a proposition to be understood. It is a mystery to be lived. And that mystery is wrapped up in this. Are you ready? A prayer rule and a way of life, right? So everybody in Orthodoxy is pressed to have a prayer rule. Things that you are going to do without fail throughout the day, right? As a priest, I am canonically bound to the hours of the day, right? So midnight hour, morning hour, also known as matins, prime, tertiary, sext, none, vespers, and compline, right? Those are the hours of the day. As a priest, I'm bound by all of those, right? Deacons are bound by all of the day hours, including prime and compline, minor orders are usually only bound to the hours to a limited degree, mostly for what is done in the seminary or what is prescribed, right, by their spiritual father. So you have those dynamics, So especially in the clergy, we have a mandated prayer rule. But we also have our own little prayer rules that we do ourselves. As a priest in the priestly fraternity of St. Columba of Iona, I have a prayer rule, right? I read the rule every day. There are certain prayers that I say that are part of the community. I also pray the Jesus prayer throughout the day. So there's a lot of things that I, as a member of the Order of St. Columba, have to do, right? It's part of my prayer rule as being a member of that community, a member of that order. And so we all have to have that prayer rule. We all have to have that means of speaking, that means of conversing with God and really trying to pray without ceasing. And so these are just a few things that I would suggest that you look into doing. The highest hallmark of Orthodoxy is a spiritual father. A spiritual father. And this, I think, is something that you can definitely and should definitely seek out, right? I am so blessed in that for myself as a priest, my bishop is my spiritual father. If I need something, he's always there. His ear is always available, and that's a real blessing for me. But it just depends on what you need, right? It just depends on what you desire. And if you desire to live this Orthodox faith, then that is definitely something that is hard pressed in Orthodoxy. And that's really what your sponsor should be. Your sponsor really should be, your spiritual mother or your spiritual father in the faith. That's what their job is. That's what their goal is. That's what their life is about, right? They're there to serve you and to help you to grow and to be raised in this Orthodox faith. And so I definitely implore you to look into that and to find a community. That's the other thing, right? So let's talk about communities very quickly. So Orthodox communities come in two variants. They come in either Western Orthodox or they come in Eastern Orthodox churches. Western Orthodox churches are very similar. It depends on jurisdiction, on what you're going to see. Our jurisdiction, we focus primarily on the Anglican rites. So the Divine Liturgy of St. Tikhon of Moscow versus the Roman rites, which are, the Divine Liturgy of St. Gregory the Great. The Antiochians, from my understanding, focus primarily on the Roman rites, right? Um, I don't think that's necessary, but uh, that's just me. But the Anglican rites definitely gives a home for the Anglican churches and those people who are Episcopal or Methodist or who are coming from that strain, to find a place and find a home, right? So those are your Western Orthodox churches, right? They're either Anglican Rite or Roman Rite. And then you have your Eastern Orthodox churches, which everyone's familiar with. The Russians, the Greeks, the Serbians, the Romanians, the Antiochians. The list goes on. And so, any of those churches, you'll be able to find any of those churches anywhere, right? And I would thoroughly suggest that you go to one of those churches and that you find a home and find a place with those churches, worship with those churches if that sets you well, but just ask the Lord what it is that He wants you to do, right? Because that's the key thing. That's what really matters the most, is that you ask the Lord, hey, Lord Jesus, what do you desire, and what do you desire for me? What do you desire in my heart? Place that desire in me, right? I am here to do your will, not my own, right? And so you have to ask the Lord, what is it that He wants you to do, right? Where is He calling you to be? What resonates with you? Like I said earlier, I'm a biracial priest. I can do both the Eastern rites and the Western rites. For myself, that's a really hard question, for myself, because I love both. Both are so beautiful, they each have their own specific simplicity or their extravagance or just beauty that, it's hard for me myself to choose. Luckily, I have a parish community that I'm attached to, but also being the dean, it's great because I get to visit different communities and worship with different communities and celebrate the Divine Liturgy with different communities. So all of these are beautiful and they're great and it's such a blessing, but you probably won't have that option. You may only have an Eastern Orthodox church near you. Western Orthodox churches are still very small. They're not haven't completely grown out yet. So these are some things to think about. These are some things to pray about. Please, I wish you the best. May God definitely bless you in this journey for desiring to become one with Christ's church, right, with the Holy Orthodox Church. And I pray and I hope that we will all be able to help you in that journey. Wherever you end up at, wherever you land up at, wherever God is calling you to be a part of in that community. I pray that we as Orthodox will welcome you with open arms and will help you to live out this faith in love and truth with one another, right? Because that's really what it's all about. It's all about Jesus, and that's what He teaches us. That's His commandments. That's what He gives to us. That's the blessings that He imparts into us. It's His love and His peace, so that we can give that love and peace to others, right? So if you have questions, you can feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Or you can always send us a message on our website. And otherwise, I hope that this is good for you, that this was helpful for you. May God bless you, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And I will speak with you, hopefully, and see you guys next week. God bless.